Okay, in this video I'm just going to be talking a little bit about what I feel is the most critical part of the golf swing, and that is the release. And I'm defining the release as the club head being 1 foot either side of the ball. And obviously it's what controls impact and where the ball goes. And I've got a couple of videos here, one from 2001 on the left here, where we can see Tiger just on a standard 25 frames a second camera. And we'll see that in the release area, which I'd say that club isn't probably just about approaching, and then the next frame there's actually no frames whatsoever, and the club's moved a good sort of 4.5 feet. So there's no real understanding of what is actually going on through impact. In today's modern age of high-speed cameras and phantom cameras and so forth, we can get very high frame rates. So if we look at the same position coming down where the shaft is kind of on the right leg here, similar position there, we'll see we're getting far more frames through impact, and getting a better understanding of what is actually controlling this golf ball, where it goes, and what makes a swing work. Because I was always puzzled throughout my whole career as you could get some swings that looked very good that didn't hit the ball very straight, and then you get other swings that didn't look good at all. You can think of, just off the top of your head, Jim Furyk, even going back a bit, Raymond Floyd, all these swings that didn't look very nice, but they did hit the ball very, very straight. And you've had times when Tiger's swing has looked immaculate and he sprayed it all over the place. So there's a lot, I think, to learn, a lot to understand about that critical release zone of what happens through impact. I'm just going to bring up a couple of videos just to show some of the visual characteristics of what I think a good release is, and it's a release what has been termed by Kelvin Mejia, a colleague of mine, as a drive hold release. And there's a couple of videos here which will demonstrate that. I'm going to use a female and a male player, and it's important to understand that drive hold releases of the ball, they're going to be long, they're going to be straight, but what are the visual characteristics? And not every golfer has got all of the qualities that you require to be sort of the ultimate drive holder. So we got Michelle Wie here, who's without doubt been one of the longest and straightest hitters on the LPGA Tour for a number of years now, and has certainly come into some recent good form, particularly with her driving. And this is from the major that she won this is from the US Open last year, and we'll see, which she won. We'll see here how the club face is nice and square. She's got that left arm sort of slightly flexed. You can see here how the left arm certainly is by no means straight. You can see there's a good angle and flex in the left arm there. You can certainly see the left arm is trying to pull away from the body, although she probably hasn't got the strength to pull it away as much as maybe other players. And there's a good speed in the arms. The arms and the hips are still driving. We can still see the legs and the hips and the arms trying to drive forward, and she's holding the face square, hence why it's called a drive hold release. The premise of this whole release is the arms and the body are driving, trying to, as much as possible, hold the face square and stop the shaft from flipping past the left arm. So a good visual characteristic, and this is kind of the benchmark that I see, is that when the shaft is sort of 1 foot, club head's 1 foot past the ball, if we look at the sort of the upper left arm, we want to make sure that shaft certainly has not yet caught up with that upper left arm, so it's still being driven from that pivot point from the left shoulder. Another visual characteristic is that the left wrist is still relatively flat, although that can sometimes look different with people with very strong grips. And you can see how the shaft is nicely in line with that left forearm, and the face is nice and square. So, and we can also see that right hand is not kind of rolled over too much. It's kind of, the hands have sort of stayed fairly stable through impact. There's been no flipping or rolling of the club face. So those are some of the visual characteristics. If we go to a more extreme example, if we go to the very, very high end in terms of club head speed, Jamie Sadlowski here, 2-time world long driver, has had his clubhead speed recorded of 152 miles an hour at some points in his career. So very, very extreme clubhead speed, but also relatively straight given that clubhead speed. So we'll see some of the more drive, hold, release characteristics probably almost exaggerated. He has a very extreme left arm abduction here away from the body. So you can see how bent that left arm is. You can see how that that elbow is kind of pointing at the target, and if we look at it back and forth, we can see just how much that left upper arm is moving and accelerating and driving as he comes through. There's no stalling of the arms, there's no stopping of the arms. The arms are slowing down, yes, because of the energy being released to the club, but there's certainly no intention of the player trying to slow the arms down at all. They're trying to drive them as much as possible, and you can see from that sort of left foot spinning out there just how much the hips are trying to turn and accelerate. So with good drive holders, the weight is always on the back foot, head nicely behind the ball, body accelerating and turning as much as possible. That axis of rotation has shifted from the pelvis into that left hip joint. So these are the sort of visual characteristics, and if we look at some more kind of different views of what this can look like, certainly one of the characteristics is a low rate of closure. And if we look here at Jordan Spieth here from a rather unusual view, we'll see here on the downswing how the club face is really square just before impact, and then the club face is nice and square after. So here's a great example of why he's been so dominant in recent weeks and months, and how straight he's been, and that the club face never really is rotating at any great rate through the ball. So there's a really, really nice example of a drive, hold, release. If we have a look in a little bit more of a close-up, and this video is at a much higher frame rate. We'll see here, I think this is about sort of 4,000 or 6,000 frames a second. We'll see here how there's a really good driving of the arms, there's no slowing down of the arms, and we'll see just how square that club face is. It's probably only at that point, probably only sort of 4 or 5 degrees open at the most, and then as it comes down, it's held, although that's been hit a little bit off the toe. But we can see here how as he comes through, if we take it to a foot past, we see this characteristic of the shaft sort of not really caught up with the left forearm yet, and there's still some good flex in the right wrist there. So those are the sort of characteristics we see at a very kind of basic level without going into any anatomical detail, which I can do in future videos. Let's now just have a quick look at some of the slight variations on the releases on tour, and I'm going to first of all go to what is known as an underflip, which is Brandt Snedeker, and in this release here, it's don't get me wrong, it's a very good swing, and it looks like a drive, hold, release, but he loses it just by a couple of frames, in that as he approaches impact, he doesn't quite get this look of, if we take it to a sort of a foot past impact, we don't quite see the shaft behind the left forearm. So here we have the left forearm. We can see here how this is what I call an underflip, where the right hand has flipped slightly under the left hand and the shaft has gone past. So although he's a very good player, he can be a slightly streaky player, and there are times throughout his career where he really struggles with his driving accuracy, and there are times when he can really time it. So here we have a classic example of a tour player who's reached a very high level in the game, who doesn't necessarily have an optimal release pattern, because that shaft kind of flipping past the left arm is definitely going to give slightly less control over the dynamic loft, over the face angle and the rate of closure. Although it will be a fairly low rate of closure, it's certainly a little bit harder to control than maybe the pure drive holders. So there's one variation example of the drive hold. Just to keep these videos relatively short, I'm going to look at some of the other variations of the releases on tour in future videos, but I hope that's been an initial sort of better understanding about what types of releases are used on tour, and which ones work well and which ones don't work well.